The wind howled like a wounded beast as Druvath tightened his cloak against the biting chill. The valley of Mars stretched before him, an endless expanse of stone and silence. Once, this had been the fertile heart of the Marble Empire, its rivers glistening silver beneath the sun, its fields overflowing with wheat, its cities crowned with spires of polished marble. Now, the land lay broken, dry, and pale, as if the very veins of life had been ripped from it. Kalen stood on a ridge overlooking the valley. From here, he could see the skeletal remains of a once mighty city, towers shattered like broken teeth, walls crumbled into heaps of stone, and statues that lined the roads, all standing perfectly still, their faces forever frozen in fear. No birds sang. No insects buzzed. The silence was oppressive, a weight pressing against Kalen's chest. He had been warned. Do not linger in the valley, the villagers had told him. The statues watch. The statues remember. But Kalen had no choice. The kingdom of Veros was collapsing under its own hunger for conquest. His emperor demanded answers. The valley had once been a jewel of trade, its fall mysterious, its ruins feared. If Kalen returned empty-handed, he would lose more than his honor. Behind him, 3 companions shifted uneasily. Irinder, the scholar, clutched a heavy satchel of books and scrolls, his eyes darting nervously at every shadow. This place, it was cursed, he murmured. They say the Empire's pride summoned a punishment. The gods themselves froze its people in stone. Beside him, Captain Veros spat into the dust. A scar ran across his jawline, the mark of 100 battles. Gods had nothing to do with it. Men destroy themselves well enough without divine help. The last of their group, a young thief named Leora, said nothing. She only adjusted the daggers at her belt, her sharp eyes fixed on the silent road below. Kalen took a deep breath. We move. At sunset, we reached the gates. The descent into the valley was slow. Their boots crunched on loose stone, echoing far too loudly. The deeper they went, the colder it became, though no wind stirred. The air itself seemed stagnant, heavy with age. They passed statues, hundreds of them, lining the ancient road. Men in armor, women clutching children, merchants with their wares. Every one carved in exquisite detail. Their eyes seemed alive, glassy with fear, lips parted mid-scream or mid-prayer. They looked too real, Leora whispered. As if someone trapped them like this. Irinder paused, brushing the marble hand of a statue. His own face paled. This is no mason's work. The veins, the pores, the folds of cloth. No chisel in the world could carve this. Then what are they? Veros asked. Irinder's voice trembled. Not statues. No one spoke after that. By dusk, the ruins of the city loomed above them. The gates of Mars still stood, massive slabs of white marble, their surfaces cracked but unbroken. On either side, colossal guardians towered, 2 statues of armored men with spears, their eyes hollow yet watchful. The group stopped. Kalen felt sweat bead on his brow despite the cold. The silence was deeper here, as though the air itself held its breath. Are we truly going in? Leora asked, her voice low. Kalen nodded. We didn't come this far to turn back. They stepped beneath the shadow of the gates. The city within was worse than Kalen imagined. Streets stretched empty and silent, lined with frozen figures. Children stood mid-laughter, merchants mid-haggle, soldiers mid-march. Every corner revealed new scenes, life halted in an instant. The sun dipped, and long shadows slithered across the streets. The marble glowed faintly in the dying light, as though holding onto something not its own. They reached the central plaza. In its center stood a fountain, dry for centuries, surrounded by dozens of figures. Some were kneeling, some raising hands to the sky, some curled in terror. Kalen's breath caught. The fountain statue was not of a god or king, but of a woman tall, robed, her face hidden by a veil of stone. Her hands extended as if in offering. And around her feet, dozens of marble faces stared upward in eternal despair. Irinder's lips quivered. The veiled oracle. She was said to guard the prophecy of the Empire. They built shrines in her honor. As if on cue, the ground beneath them trembled. A low hum echoed through the plaza, reverberating in Kalen's bones. The statues shifted. It was not much, a tilt of a head, a shiver in the stone fingers, but it was enough. Leora drew her daggers. "Tell me you saw that." "I saw it," Barrows growled, sword rasping free. The hum deepened. The air grew colder. Shadows lengthened unnaturally, creeping along the ground like liquid. Then Kalen saw them. From the corners of the plaza, tall figures emerged, not statues, but things of living stone. Their eyes burned faintly, pale fire flickering within. Their movements were slow, deliberate, each step echoing like a hammer strike. "The Watchers," Irinder whispered, horror in his voice. "The guardians of the petrified realm." One of them raised a massive hand and pointed directly at Kalen. The humming stopped. Silence pressed in like a vice. Then the fountain cracked. Marble split, shards falling like rain. The veiled oracle's stone veil crumbled, revealing an empty face, smooth, featureless, hollow. The silence after the oracle's words was worse than the hum. It was the kind of silence that pressed against the skin, that filled the ears until even a heartbeat sounded like thunder. Kalen's hand went instinctively to the hilt of his sword, though he knew, deep in his bones, that steel would do little against what stood before them. The Watchers moved. Not quickly, not like men, but with the inexorable certainty of boulders rolling down a mountain. Every step shook the plaza, dust rising from cracks in the marble. Their eyes burned brighter now, pale flames flickering within hollow sockets. "Back," Kalen ordered, his voice steadier than he felt. "Form up." Barrows planted his shield before him with a clang. Leora darted behind the fountain, blades ready, her movements cat-quick. Irinder stood frozen, lips moving in a whisper Kalen could not hear, his scholar's mind scrambling to recall the legends he had so loved to study, but never dreamed to face. The first Watcher reached them. Its arm swung, a slab of stone the size of a tree trunk, and slammed into Barrows' shield. The impact hurled him back 3 paces, his boots gouging trenches in the marble floor. He grunted, teeth clenched, shield splintering but holding. Kalen leapt forward, sword flashing. The blade struck the Watcher's arm, sparks bursting as steel scraped stone. The sword bit shallowly, leaving only a thin scar. "It barely marks them," Kalen shouted. "They are not meant to be killed," Irinder cried, finally breaking his trance. "They are meant to endure." Another Watcher advanced, shadow stretching unnaturally long. Leora hurled a dagger, it clinked harmlessly off the stone chest. She swore, darting aside as the giant's hand slammed down where she'd stood, the impact cracking marble like glass. Kalen gritted his teeth. "Then we don't kill them, we survive them." The battle turned into chaos. Watchers moved with deceptive slowness, but each swing of their limbs carried enough force to shatter bone and stone alike. Barrows fought like a lion, shield raised, sword striking whenever the giants left the faintest opening. Leora weaved through their legs, slashing at joints, throwing daggers at glowing eyes though none struck true. Kalen drew their attention again and again, forcing himself into the open, his strikes designed less to wound than to distract. But it was Irinder who realized the truth. "The fountain," he shouted above the din. His trembling hands pointed at the veiled oracle, still cracked, her faceless head tilted toward them. "She is their heart. While she stands, they will rise." Kalen risked a glance and saw it. Each time a Watcher was struck, however lightly, faint lines of light pulsed through their stone bodies, leading back into the cracked fountain. The oracle's hollow face glowed faintly, like an empty vessel channeling their strength. "Then we break her," Kalen growled. He lunged for the fountain, but a Watcher barred his way, spear-like arm plunging into the ground before him. The impact sent Kalen sprawling. His sword clattered from his grip. The ground trembled again, no, not just from the Watchers. From beneath the city. A deep rumble, ancient and vast, as though something beneath Aramar shifted in its sleep. Irinder's face went pale. "They are not the only ones bound here." Barrows dragged Kalen to his feet. "If we can't win, then we run. We fall back, regroup." But Kalen shook his head. "We'll never outrun them in these streets. They will hunt us." His eyes flicked to the oracle. We have one chance. Leora appeared beside him, hair wild, blood trickling from a cut on her temple. Say the word. Kaelin's grip tightened on his sword hilt. We take her down. The four of them surged as one. Veros blocked a Watcher's strike with his shattered shield, roaring defiance as stone splinters flew. Leora darted beneath another's legs, her daggers flashing as she hamstrung its stony joints, not enough to cripple, but enough to stagger. Kaelin leapt onto the fountain's edge, sword raised high. The oracle turned her faceless head toward him. The voice came again, deeper, angrier, echoing from every wall and every statue. You do not understand. We do not guard the past. We guard what lies beneath. Kaelin's blade descended. Steel met stone, and the oracle cracked open, fissures running down her robed form. The Watchers let out a sound, if it could be called that, like mountains grinding together. Their movements faltered, eyes flickering. For a heartbeat, Kaelin thought they had won. Then the ground beneath the plaza split open. From the rupture rose a blast of cold air, carrying with it whispers, not words, but fragments, half screams, half laughter. The statues around the plaza shivered, cracks running through them. Some wept marble tears. Some opened mouths in silent horror. And deep, deep below, something stirred. The oracle's ruined body lifted, though shattered, held aloft by unseen force. Her voice rang louder, shaking the city. The seal is broken. The realm awakens. Kaelin stumbled back, sword shaking in his hand. What have we done? Irinder's face was ashen. His voice barely a whisper. We've unleashed it. The earth did not stop shaking. What began as a tremor spread outward in violent ripples, making the once grand marble plaza groan like a living thing. Statues tumbled from their pedestals, their broken faces shattering across the ground. Cracks spiderwebbed across the walls of the surrounding halls, spreading like veins of black glass. Kaelin braced himself against the ruined fountain, his sword slick in his grip. Dust filled the air, stinging his eyes, burning his throat. He looked toward his companions through the haze. Veros stood like a bastion, shield raised though half destroyed. Leora crouched low, knives drawn, her eyes flicking in every direction. And Irinder, poor Irinder, stood transfixed, muttering in a voice that no longer sounded like his own. The seal is undone, the scholar whispered. The whispers told the truth. The Watchers were never guardians of men. They were jailers. Kaelin's stomach twisted. Jailers. That word hung heavy in the choking air. The oracle's broken form hovered above the fountain, fissures glowing with pale light. Her hollow face stared at Kaelin as though she could see straight into the marrow of his soul. The seal is broken, she repeated, though her voice now came layered, many voices speaking as one. Some male, some female, some not human at all. The first dream stirs. The silence of centuries ends. From beneath the plaza, a roar rose, not of beast or man, but of something vaster. It sounded like stones splitting, oceans boiling, stars tearing from the heavens. The air grew colder, yet the marble itself burned beneath their feet. The cracks widened. And then they saw it. A hand. But not of flesh. It was formed of something darker than stone, something that absorbed the torchlight rather than reflected it. Fingers clawed upward from the abyss, vast and jointed in ways that hurt the eyes to look at. Each nail gleamed like obsidian, wet with shadow. Leora gasped, staggering back. By the gods, the Watchers, who had faltered when the oracle cracked, suddenly straightened, their glowing eyes flaring. They did not attack now. Instead, they turned as one, forming a half-circle around the widening chasm, their massive arms outstretched. There, holding it back, Veros realized, awe breaking through his warrior's grit. By all the saints, they're not trying to kill us. They're trying to stop that. Kaelin's blood ran cold. It made sense. Every strike they had thrown, every defense, every unyielding blow, none of it had been personal. The Watchers had not been guarding the city's secrets for mortals. They had been straining against something deeper, older. Irinder clutched his head. His eyes rolled white. It is the first dream. The thought that became flesh. The echo of the gods' first lie. It was bound when the empire fell. The Watchers were made from kings and champions, cursed into stone, to ensure it never rose again. Kaelin grabbed him by the shoulders, shaking hard. Then tell us how to seal it back. Irinder's jaw worked uselessly. I don't know. The texts only whispered. No mortal was meant to unmake the seal. It was supposed to hold forever. The dark hand pulled further free. Now a forearm, etched with lines of burning crimson, as if veins of molten fire ran beneath its surface. The whispers grew louder, clearer, words that crept beneath the skin. Release me, remember me. I am what you lost. I am what you are owed. Kaelin felt his thoughts slide, his grip weaken. For a heartbeat, he saw himself kneeling in a vast hall of gold, a crown upon his brow, marble cities bowing to him. He saw armies chanting his name. He felt the weight of destiny on his shoulders and the freedom of giving into the whispers. He almost let go. But then Leora's voice cut through the haze, sharp and urgent. Kaelin. She shoved him, hard enough to jolt him from the vision. Her eyes, fierce and desperate, locked onto his. Stay with us. He nodded, shaking his head clear. The whispers faded, though faint echoes clung to the edges of his mind. The Watchers groaned in unison, straining to push the hand back down. But cracks spread further, and the Oracle's voice, those many voices, rose in fury. The chain is broken. The dreamer wakes. The Watchers cannot hold it alone. Veros slammed his fist against his battered shield. Then we fight beside them. Kaelin stared at the impossible scene, the stone giants locked in an eternal battle, the abyss clawing upward, his companions trembling yet unbroken. Something inside him, some stubborn ember, flared bright. He raised his sword high. Then we fight. And they did. Kaelin, Veros, Leora, and even Irinder, who barely had strength to stand, threw themselves into the fray. They struck at the hand as it rose, steel flashing against obsidian flesh. Sparks flew, the abyss shrieked, and for every wound they scored, darkness seeped instead of blood. The Watchers pressed down, voices like thunder, their glowing eyes dimming with the strain. The Oracle's broken form burned brighter, fissures spilling light across the plaza. But the hand kept rising. Another arm clawed free beside the first. Fingers curled, gripping the marble floor, dragging something vast toward the surface. Shadows bled from the cracks, racing across the city like a tide, pouring into streets and alleys. Far off, statues began to move. Not as guardians, not as watchers, but as hollow vessels, animated by the whispering dark. Their faces twisted in grotesque mimicry of life, mouths opening wide in silent screams as they turned toward the plaza. Leora cursed under her breath. We're running out of time. Kaelin drove his blade into one of the dark fingers, wrenching it free. Then we make time. And as if in answer, the Oracle's voices thundered one last command, shattering marble and bone alike. Seek the chamber of the last crown. Only there can the seal be remade. The ground heaved. The hand tore further free. And Kaelin realized they had only just begun. The city itself seemed to wail. From every avenue and collapsed archway, the sound of grinding stone echoed. Statues long dormant, shattered effigies of emperors and forgotten saints, were stirring. Their eyes, once dull and lifeless, now burned with hollow fire. Marble jaws cracked open in grotesque mimicry of voices, yet no words came forth. Only silence, heavier than screams. Kaelin's heart thundered as he pulled his blade from the dark fissure, where the Watchers strained to hold the abyss. His arm shook from the effort. We can't hold this. The Oracle's fractured glow flickered like a dying star. Her voices lashed the air, desperate, commanding. Go. Seek the chamber of the last crown. Only there can the dream be chained again. But where? Veros began, his shield arm trembling as he battered away at shadows rising like black flame. The heart of the palace. Irinder's cracked voice rang out, fevered with knowledge not entirely his own. He clutched his skull as if the whispers were gnawing his mind from the inside. Beneath the throne, where the empire died, the crown still bleeds. That is where the seal lies. Kaelin seized his shoulder, forcing the scholar to meet his eyes. Then lead us, damn you. The ground lurched, splitting wider. The watchers groaned, their titanic bodies cracking as they strained. One fell to its knees, fissures glowing across its form like molten wounds. Yet, even broken, it pressed its stony palms against the abyss, holding the horror at bay. Leora's voice cut sharp through the chaos. If we stay, we die. If we leave, maybe the world lives. Kaelin looked once more at the Watchers, ancient guardians who had given their eternity to resist the abyss. Their glowing eyes met his not as enemies now, but as allies. A silent plea lingered in that gaze. Hurry. Move. Kaelin shouted. They fled the plaza, the ground trembling underfoot. Behind them, the oracle's voice rose in a last echo. Bind the dreamer, or all shall become stone. The avenues of the petrified realm stretched before them, a labyrinth of fallen arches and looming statues. But they were no longer lifeless. Across rooftops and streets, marble figures pulled themselves free from centuries of stillness. A faceless judge, scales in hand, stepped from its pedestal and lurched toward them, each movement echoing like boulders crashing. Soldiers carved of white stone marched stiffly, their once proud armor cracked, swords gleaming with unnatural shadow. They're everywhere, Leora hissed, ducking into a narrow street as a giant's fist pulverized the stones where they'd stood moments before. They'll crush us before we reach the palace. Irinder staggered as he ran, clutching scrolls to his chest though the parchment was torn and bloodied. They don't all move at once. Some are weaker, fragments of thought. Others he stopped short, his breath ragged. Others are chosen. Those who fell willingly into silence. Veros grunted, shoving aside a collapsing wall. Whatever they are, they bleed like stone. That's enough for me. But Kaelin knew it wasn't enough. Every blow they struck slowed them, drained them, while the army of marble only grew. This was no battle they could win with steel alone. The city shifted as if aware of their presence, corridors twisting in unnatural ways, streets that should have led to the palace curving instead into ruin. The marble itself resisted them. Kaelin cursed under his breath. It's guiding us into traps. Yes, Irinder gasped, eyes wide with haunted recognition. The city is alive. It was built as a prison, every stone bound to the seal. Now the seal weakens and the prison turns against us. They burst into a wide forum where broken statues littered the floor like corpses. But even shattered, some stirred. Pieces crawled across the ground, limbs dragging torsos, heads rolling toward bodies that reassembled in grotesque silence. Run! Leora shouted, vaulting over a fallen column. They sprinted, but a massive figure blocked their path, a colossus of an emperor, crown cracked, his marble face half missing. In his hand gleamed a shattered scepter, edges sharp as blades. The hollow glow in his eye sockets fixed upon them. The last emperor, Irinder whispered, terror in every syllable. The statue raised its weapon high. Veros threw himself forward, shield braced. The scepter crashed down, the impact shaking the ground and splintering Veros's arm. He roared in pain, but held the blow long enough for Kaelin and Leora to dart aside. Kaelin leapt, driving his sword into the emperor's knee. Stone cracked, but the giant did not falter. Instead, its free hand shot out, grasping Kaelin like a child might seize an insect. The pressure was crushing, ribs creaking under the grip. The whispers returned, sliding through Kaelin's mind like poison. Bow. Wear the crown. Rule eternal as stone does. Flesh dies. Stone reigns. His vision blurred. For a heartbeat, he saw himself enthroned in a hall of endless statues, all kneeling. His skin pale as marble, eyes burning hollow. He would never age, never falter. He would rule forever. Kaelin! Leora's scream pierced the vision. A flash of steel cut across the statue's wrist, sparks spraying. The grip loosened just enough. Kaelin twisted, driving his sword upward into the joint. The arm shattered. He fell, gasping as the emperor reeled back. Veros, blood streaming from his mouth, slammed his shield into the giant's leg once more. Cracks spread, spider-webbing upward. With a final heave, the colossus toppled, crashing into the ruined forum. The ground quaked. Dust billowed. Silence. But Kaelin knew it wouldn't last. Already the fragments stirred, pulling together. The Emperor would rise again. "We can't kill them," he rasped, hauling Veros to his feet. "Not for good. We can only delay them." "Then we delay them all the way to the palace," Leora spat, eyes blazing. Irinder pointed, hand trembling. Through the drifting dust, the broken spires of the Imperial Palace rose above the horizon, black against the blood-red sky. Its gates loomed wide, carved with scenes of triumph and betrayal. The marble glistened as though wet, veins of crimson light running through its cracks. "There," the scholar whispered. "The chamber of the last crown lies beneath. That is where it must end." The whispers grew louder as if the palace itself called to them, promising salvation and damnation alike. Kaelin clenched his jaw. Every step forward felt like sinking deeper into a nightmare, but there was no turning back. The Watchers could not hold forever. The first dream was rising. And the chamber awaited. The gates loomed like jaws. They stood higher than any cathedral Kaelin had ever seen, sculpted from white stone veined with a dark, pulsing crimson. The veins glowed faintly, as if the marble itself bled. Carvings of emperors and saints twisted across the doors, but their faces had changed with time. Their eyes were hollow pits, their smiles too sharp. The four companions stood at the threshold, each breathing hard, each marked by blood and dust. Behind them, the thunder of moving statues rolled across the city. The shattered emperor was rising again, and with him, countless others. "We're out of time," Leora hissed, her daggers clenched so tightly her knuckles whitened. Veros leaned heavily on his shield, every breath rattling. His arm dangled uselessly, broken from the Emperor's blow. Yet his gaze burned with defiance. "Then open it, Kaelin. Whatever waits inside, we face it." Kaelin's hand touched the cold surface of the gate. At once, whispers slid into his mind, gentle, persuasive, like silk brushing the soul. "Heir of blood, bearer of steel, kneel, and the crown is yours. End this struggle. Rule unbroken." His jaw tightened. He pushed with all his strength. The gates groaned like mountains shifting. Slowly, agonizingly, they opened. A rush of icy wind spilled out, carrying the scent of dust, blood, and something ancient, like dreams long forgotten. The companions stepped inside. The grand hall was vast enough to swallow a city square. Pillars of marble rose like forests of stone, their surfaces carved with scenes of conquest, armies marching, thrones ascending, gods bowing to kings. Yet every image seemed to writhe as they passed, figures shifting in the corner of their eyes. Irinder faltered, clutching his temples. "The palace remembers, it feeds on thought. Careful. Don't let it weave your memories against you." Kaelin kept his eyes fixed ahead, but already he felt the pull. He thought he saw his village, his father's forge glowing, his mother calling his name. For a moment he almost turned. Then Leora's hand seized his arm, grounding him. "Stay sharp," she whispered. They moved deeper. The sound of their footsteps echoed unnaturally, too loud, as if the hall itself magnified every step. And then came the first illusion. From behind a pillar stepped a child. Barefoot, clad in rags, eyes wide with fear. "Help me," she whispered. Her skin was pale, but faint cracks spread across it like veins of marble. Veros halted. His face drained of color. "Nira," his voice broke. The others turned. "She was my daughter," he said hoarsely. "She died years ago. Fever." The child stretched her arms toward him. "Father," Veros stumbled forward, tears cutting through the grime on his face. Kaelin caught his shoulder hard. "It's a trick," Kaelin snapped. "It's not her." But Veros's eyes blazed with desperate hope. "I can't." "What if?" The child's smile sharpened. Her eyes turned hollow. Her arms twisted, stretching too long, fingers splitting into claws of stone. Kaelin yanked Veros back just as the illusion lunged, shrieking. Leora's dagger flashed, cutting through the figure. It shattered into dust. Veros sagged, sobbing once, then choking it down. I almost believed." "That's what it wants," Irinder said, his voice grim. "The first dream thrives on weakness. Regret. Memory. It twists them until you beg to join its silence. They pressed on. The deeper they went, the more the palace bled illusions. From one hall came the laughter of Kaelin's comrades long dead. From another, the smell of Leora's childhood home, the desert wind, her mother's perfume. Every corner was a test, every step a trap. And all the while, the palace seemed to pulse. The veins in the marble walls throbbed like arteries. Crimson light glimmered faintly, as though the entire structure was alive, feeding on them. At last, they reached the central stair. It spiraled downward into shadow, steps slick with a faint sheen of red. Irinder spoke, voice trembling with awe and terror. Below lies the chamber of the last crown. The emperor who bound the first dream was entombed there. His crown is the seal. His silence keeps the world breathing. And if the crown breaks? Leora asked. Then the dreamer wakes. They descended. The stair emptied into a vast chamber. Its ceiling was lost in shadow, its walls lined with statues of emperors, each kneeling, each crowned. But their faces were cracked, some weeping stone tears. At the center lay a great sarcophagus, carved from black marble shot through with veins of gold. Upon it rested a crown simple, unadorned, yet it pulsed with a light that seemed both holy and cursed. Kaelin felt his knees weaken. His body ached to kneel. His hand yearned to lift the crown, to place it upon his head. The whispers flooded him. Yes, you are worthy. You will end the war. You will silence the world. Take it and rule. He staggered forward, trembling. Leora's dagger pressed against his chest. Her eyes blazed. Don't you dare. Kaelin blinked, sweat pouring down his brow. The voice receded, though not entirely. Irinder stepped forward, reverent. The last crown. The heart of the prison. If it falters, all is lost. But to restore it, he trailed off, staring. His face was pale, his lips trembling. Irinder. Kaelin's voice sharpened. The scholar's hands shook. It calls to me. Behind them, the ground shuddered. The gates above groaned. Far away, the roar of marble statues echoed. The emperor was coming. Veros raised his shield, teeth clenched. We don't have time for doubts. What do we do? The crown pulsed brighter, as if answering. And the chamber filled with a new voice, deep, resonant, older than the watchers themselves. The seal is not broken, yet. But one of you must wear it. One of you must bind the dream again. Forever. Silence fell like a blade. Kaelin's blood ran cold. One of them would not leave this chamber. The chamber pulsed like a living heart. The crown, plain yet terrible, throbbed with a crimson light upon the sarcophagus. Every beat shook the air, filling it with whispers. The watchers carved into the walls seemed to lean forward, their stone mouths parted as though awaiting judgment. Kaelin's sword weighed like lead at his side. He couldn't look away from the crown. His soul screamed to touch it, to claim it, to end everything. For a fleeting heartbeat, he imagined peace, armies laying down arms, kings kneeling, silence across the land. A world without conflict, a world under one rule. His. Don't, Leora hissed again, stepping between him and the sarcophagus. Her eyes shone like blades, her stance taut. She didn't trust him. Not anymore. Irinder's lips trembled as he recited words none of them wanted to hear. Only one soul may bear the weight. One life for the prison. Whoever wears the crown will never return. The silence that followed was crushing. Veros broke it, voice hoarse, but steady. Then it will be me. Kaelin spun toward him. No, Veros stood tall, though his arm hung useless. His armor was cracked, his face streaked with tears and dust. Yet there was no hesitation in his eyes. I've seen what this place does. I've nearly fallen already. My daughter, her face still haunts me. If my death means she sleeps in peace, then let it be mine. No, Kaelin barked, his voice sharp. We need you. You're our shield. But Irinder's hand rose, shaking. It should be me. My life is steady. I have no family, no kingdom, no people waiting. The burden is knowledge, and I have spent mine for this very purpose. Leora snarled, her voice cracking with fury. Stop it. None of you choose. We fight our way out. We find another way. The crown pulsed brighter as though laughing. The voice that had filled the chamber earlier returned, heavy and merciless. The prison demands its keeper. Without sacrifice, the dream wakes. The ground trembled. Dust cascaded from the ceiling. From above, the sound of collapsing marble roared closer, statues breaking their way down. Kaelin's chest heaved. Rage, sorrow, and fear warred inside him. He had led them here. If anyone was to be sacrificed, shouldn't it be him? He stepped forward, but Leora's dagger lifted instantly, trembling against his chest. Her face was pale, but her eyes held iron. Don't you dare, Kaelin. You're the reason we've made it this far. You're the only one stubborn enough to resist it. Kaelin's jaw clenched. And what, you think you'd survive it? Her lips twisted into a bitter smile. Maybe not. But better me than any of you. The air thickened. Shadows along the walls deepened. The Watchers shifted, their petrified eyes glowing faintly red. The crown pulsed faster, like a heartbeat accelerating. And then came the illusion. From the far side of the chamber, another figure stepped into the light. An emperor. Cloaked in flowing robes of gold, crowned with a twisted version of the marble circlet. His skin cracked with veins of stone, but his eyes were endless. He smiled as though welcoming children home. Why struggle? The figure asked, voice deep, soothing. The world begs for silence. Take the crown, and I will show you mercy. Take it and rule as my heir. Refuse. He lifted a hand. All the statues along the walls shuddered, their stone fingers twitching. And the Watchers will wake. Kaelin's stomach turned. He could feel the Emperor wasn't truly there, just another dream, another snare. But the threat was real. The palace itself groaned. Leora spat at the apparition. We don't bow to ghosts. The Emperor's smile widened. Then bow to eternity. The statues moved. One by one, they tore themselves free from the walls, kneeling emperors rising with crowns of broken stone. Their faces cracked open into hollow maws, their eyes burning with crimson fire. Varos roared, slamming his shield against the ground. The sound rang out like thunder, drawing their attention. Keep them back. Kaelin, decide. Irinder clutched his staff, chanting frantically. Lines of ancient light seared into the floor, a barrier to slow the nearest statues. But sweat poured down his face. He couldn't hold it long. Kaelin's sword rang as he drew it. We can fight, no. Leora snapped. She ducked under a statue's swing, her daggers flashing. Not forever. The crown pulsed again. Louder. Faster. Kaelin's vision blurred. He saw not one future, but many, Irinder wearing the crown, his body dissolving into dust. Leora collapsing, her scream echoing. Varos's broken form kneeling eternally in silence. Even himself, seated on a throne of bone, eyes blank, mouth whispering endless lullabies to a world turned to stone. Choose. The word hammered his skull. Choose, or all is lost. The chamber erupted in chaos. Statues crashed against Varos's shield. Irinder's barrier cracked. Leora screamed, slashing desperately as stone claws ripped at her. Kaelin staggered to the sarcophagus. The crown blazed before him, veins of crimson spreading across its surface. His hand hovered over it. The whispers rose into a deafening chorus. Take it. Bind me. Rule me. End the world's pain. His body trembled. Sweat poured down his face. And then he heard a voice, not from the crown, not from the Emperor, not from any Watcher. A real voice. Leora's. Kaelin, whatever happens, don't let it win. Promise me. His eyes burned. His heart cracked. The crown's light reached for him like fire. And Kaelin closed his hand around it. The chamber exploded with blinding crimson light. The light was unbearable. Kaelin's scream echoed in the chamber, his body writhing as the crown seared into his flesh. Crimson veins laced across his temples, pulsing like molten fire through his veins. He collapsed against the sarcophagus, clutching the crown with both hands, as though prying it from some invisible force that sought to weld it into his skull. The others shielded their eyes. Even the statues faltered, their crimson fires flickering as if startled. Leora forced herself forward, her daggers raised. Kaelin, drop it. Drop it now. But Kaelin's eyes snapped open, and they weren't his eyes anymore. Crimson light bled across his irises, glowing with unnatural fire. His voice came out hoarse, broken, layered with another tone, older and deeper. The prison opens. The Watchers stir. The crown chooses. Veros stumbled back, his shield lowering. Gods preserve us. Irinder gritted his teeth, forcing calm even as terror ran cold through his veins. It's begun. The bond is sealed. Kaelin staggered to his feet. The crown shimmered upon his brow, though it looked too heavy for flesh and bone. His hands trembled as if torn between ripping it off and clutching it tighter. Inside his mind, 1,000 voices clawed for dominance. Whispers became screams. Memories not his own spilled into him, the rise of empires, the fall of cities, blood-soaking marble steps. He saw the first emperor kneeling before this very crown, saw him smile as stone devoured his soul. But deeper still, he felt something worse. Something alive. The crown wasn't just a prison. It was a mouth. And it was hungry. Around them, the statues roared. One lunged, swinging its jagged arm toward Leora. She ducked, her blades striking stone, sparks flying. Veros surged forward, shield crashing into another watcher, forcing it back with a grunt of pain. Kaelin! Veros shouted through the chaos. Fight it! Don't let it take you. Kaelin's sword hand trembled, then rose. He swung not at his allies, but at a watcher. The blade, bathed in crimson light, split the statue clean in two. The fire in its eyes sputtered and died. The others froze, stunned. Irinder gasped. He's wielding its power. Kaelin's chest heaved. He turned, staring at them with those burning eyes. I can stop them, he rasped. I can stop all of them. But the crown, it won't let go. The Watchers surged again, an endless tide. The chamber shuddered, cracks spreading through the marble ceiling as dust rained down. Leora slashed another statue and spun toward Kaelin, rage and fear colliding in her voice. Then we break it. Destroy the crown. Kaelin's expression twisted. Destroy it? You don't understand. If it breaks, the prison breaks with it. The dream will wake. The ground shook violently as if to punctuate his words. Somewhere in the depths, a low rumble rose, the sound of something vast stirring. Irinder's chant faltered, his barrier collapsing. He staggered, nearly falling as two watchers surged through. Veros caught one with his shield, but the other swung down toward the scholar until Kaelin's crimson blade cleaved through it. The crown burned brighter, feeding on the battle. Inside, Kaelin felt the hunger grow. Each statue shattered was another vein of fire binding deeper into his flesh. He could feel his will slipping. His own thoughts drowned beneath whispers of conquest. He saw himself on a throne of marble, armies kneeling in silence, the world petrified and peaceful under his gaze. And part of him wanted it. Leora's hand caught his arm, snapping him back for a moment. Her eyes, desperate, fierce, locked on his. Kaelin, look at me. You're still in there. Don't let it win. His breath came ragged. If I stop fighting, it'll consume me. Then fight harder, she shouted. Fight for us. The chamber roared with chaos. Statues swarmed. Dust poured from the collapsing ceiling. The Emperor's illusion flickered above, his voice echoing like laughter. You cannot win. There must always be a crown bearer. A prison cannot stand without chains. Kaelin dropped to one knee, the crown burning into his skull. The whispers threatened to drown him entirely. He felt himself slipping, falling into the crown's abyss. And then he saw them. Not illusions. Not lies. His companions bloodied, desperate, but fighting. Leora slashing through stone. Veros roaring, holding back the tide with shattered armor. Irinder, trembling but unyielding, still muttering spells with lips cracked and bleeding. They were his anchor. With a scream, Kaelin slammed his sword into the ground. Crimson light erupted, blasting outward in a wave. The statues froze, their crimson flames sputtering. For a moment, just a moment, the chamber fell silent. But silence did not mean safety. The crown's voice boomed inside his skull, furious now. You're mine. You cannot resist me. Your flesh is weak. Your soul is already stone. Kalen gritted his teeth, clutching the crown. Maybe, but my will is stronger. Leora rushed to him, kneeling. Kalen, tell me what to do. How do we help you? His eyes glowed brighter, blood trickling from his nose. There's only one way. Someone has to sever the bond. Erinder's face paled. No. That ritual, it would kill the crown bearer instantly. Leora's hands tightened around Kalen's shoulders.